Hi virtual hikers, Lauren here. I am joining you from the San Jacinto Wilderness at one of the state park campgrounds. I wanted to join you today to talk a little bit about my experience with American Hikers Society as a next gen trail leader. I was able to apply to become a next gen trail leader last year, and American Hiker Society accepted me into their program. It's a really cool program where they take young leaders in the outdoor industry or outdoor spaces, and they give them a platform to talk about why the outdoors is important to them, and also help them with tools to do the advocacy work that needs to be done to protect our outdoor spaces and our trails. And so last January, I was able to travel to Washington and meet a bunch of elected officials to talk about why giving people access to outdoor spaces is really important to me. And I learned so much about what it means to advocate for things that I'm passionate about on a national platform and a national scale. Being a California person, I don't spend much time on the East Coast, and so to be in our nation's capital was a wild experience, but even more wild was to be in spaces that belong to all of us, and spaces that we elect officials into, and being able to take up space in those areas and really talk to people about what I'm passionate about, which is making sure that we are using our voices and using our vote, and using folks that are in positions of power to continually work towards making sure that we are preserving outdoor spaces, that we are giving money to folks who manage those spaces, and that we are electing people into positions that understand the importance of making sure the outdoors is a place that is not only accessible to folks of all different ages and races and abilities and genders, but also that we are being stewards of the land in a way that is supportive of our histories, and in a way that acknowledges all of the people who have made sacrifices in order for us to be here. And I think a really important piece of that for me has just been harnessing my story and having strength in my story enough to share why the outdoors is so important to me. And so for me, a lot of my advocacy work, besides talking to elected officials and sitting down with them and being able to be in those spaces, was just thinking through, like, why are the outdoors important? And what are the lessons that I've learned there? And why do I hope that other people get access to the outdoors in the same way that I have had the access? And when I thought through that story, and when I started to really embrace that story, I was then able to turn around and talk to folks about that, and recognize that my voice is equally important in these spaces. So as somebody who has learned outdoor skills through outdoor adventures and has started to really embrace this idea of I am someone who loves and enjoys the outdoors and thrives in the outdoors, it's been interesting to walk into these spaces that have previously been really dominated by mostly cis white men, and to talk about what it means as a person of color, as a queer person, to be outdoors, what are the lessons that I've learned, and why I think it's important in spaces of outdoor leadership to really honor voices that look different than the norm. And so being on Capitol Hill made me realize that there are a lot of amazing people doing the work to preserve our outdoor spaces, and it's a complicated network, right? Like we have state parks, we have BLM land, we have national parks, and a lot of these networks are under-resourced, and also are places where there hasn't been a lot of space to talk about, like, what does a diverse outdoor experience look like for folks. And so I think it's important to think through, like, who's in the room and who is at the budget meetings asking for the specific dollar amount that we need from our government to keep places like this open and to have restrooms be cleaned and staffed. So I think something I learned that was really important too is how important it is to know who your elected officials are, who represents you. So I think as much as our outdoor experiences are about being in the physical places, I think it's also about educating yourself around who is, who politically do you have leverage with? Who is your elected official? Who can you send emails to? Who can you call? And how can you tell them about how your experience in the outdoors is important to you? And I think it's important for us to know as well, like, what are the bills that are going on. So recently we just had a big win where we passed the Outdoors for All Act, which will help allocate money and funds and create programs that allow there to be greater access in the outdoors. And I wouldn't know about any of these bills previously if I didn't have involvement in American Hiker Society. And I've been really grateful for that. But I think we can do that in a lot of different ways, right? We don't always have to have a role to do that. And so I do encourage you guys to check out AmericanHikers.org, and also to see, like, what do they suggest around voting. I mean, it is election season, and so pay attention to who has been supporting funding our outdoor spaces, and feel free to look up their resources and use that as a guide when you're voting and when you're contacting elected officials. There's so many other organizations across the nation that are doing that. So if you're not in California, I mean, you could always check out folks that are like Friends of the PCT, folks that continually advocate for the preservation of the Pacific Crest Trail. There's also folks that do that on the East Coast with the ACT. So there are just so many options out there, and I encourage you all to find your voice and to practice what it feels like to use it, and continue to share your stories about why the outdoors is important for you. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on part of your virtual hike. I'm glad that we are all in this together, and I look forward to hearing stories from you all about how your year has been going. Thanks, y'all. Have a good day. Bye.